Hello, this is Ruthie, and today I want to tell you a story from the Bible. Several thousand years ago, the Babylonians came down into Israel and they captured the Jewish people and they took them all prisoners. And I think they left some of them behind, a remnant, but they took a lot of them. And there were these three men that became quite powerful actually in the Babylonian government, and they were called Meshach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, they were Jewish, so they were not allowed to bow down to idols because, of course, that's totally forbidden and completely disgusting. Well, the king there didn't feel there was a problem with idols, and he had a bit of a big head, because what he did is he had this enormous, hideous idol of himself made out of gold. I don't know if it was solid gold or it was coated with gold. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter. He had this enormous, huge, horrible, hideous idol of himself made. And then he held a big religious ceremony where all the people of the land, when they heard the music playing, had to bow down and worship the statue of him. Of course, Meshach and Meshach and Abednego were standing up like trees in this field of bowed down people because they wouldn't do it. So the king was quite angry. He called them over to himself and said, "What's going on?" They said, "We're not bowing down to that thing." He said, "Look, listen to me. I have this big, huge, enormous fire, this whopping big oven. It's really hot. It's extremely painful. It's very unpleasant. You don't want to go in there. So I'm going to give you another chance because I am such a benevolent ruler. Just when you hear the music play, bow down to the statue and worship it, okay? No problem." Well, it was a problem because when the music played, they wouldn't bow down either. Well, the king was beginning to get quite hacked off now. He called them over to himself and he said, I am not kidding about that oven. Obviously, I'm not quoting the Bible verbatim, but the events happened. He said, "I'm going to chuck you in there. And, no one will be able to help you." And they said to him, "Our God is well able to save us from your fire. But we will not bow down." But even if he doesn't, we will not bow down or worship your statue. Well, the king had a right tantrum. He said, "Heat that fire up even hotter than it is," and he chucked them in there. And then he got quite a bit of a shock because he looked in there and he said, "Oh, I thought we threw 3 men into the fire, but there's a 4th one down there, and he looks like a son of the gods, and he's walking around." So the king called Meshach, Meshach, and Abednego, "Come out." And they came out, and it says not even their clothes were singed because God had done a miracle and God had rescued them. That's a tremendous story. It's a really amazing story about the power of God. It is also a tremendous story about the power of the human will to be loyal to God, because these 3 men did not say, "We're not going to worship your statue because we know for sure that God's going to rescue us from your beastly oven and you're going to look like a twit for all of history to laugh at." No, they didn't say that. They said, "We know God can rescue us. He's totally got the powers, but even if he doesn't, we are willing to burn rather than bow down to your beastly statue because it's disloyal to God and we're not going to do it." I want to tell you that story because loyalty to God is absolutely essential. And even though God rescued those 3 men from being burnt, unfortunately, if we're going to be truth tellers, and we must be truth tellers, it is true that in the course of history, many people have been given a similar choice. Deny God, do something that's unclean, bow down to idols, whatever. And if you don't, we're going to burn you. And these people have made the same decision and they ended up burnt. But of course the Bible says that actually if that happens to you, you get a very big reward in heaven. So I know it's not much of a comfort down here, but we need to tell all the truth. But the main reason I'm telling you the story is this. We are loyal to God not because he is capable of saving us from the consequences of that loyalty. We are loyal to God because he is worthy of loyalty regardless of the consequences. And I want you to understand while you're kids that loyalty to God is absolutely essential. It's what's going to make your prayers powerful. It's what's going to make your life tidy. It's what is going to get you miracles in the course of your life. You will see people in the course of your life who they can talk a very spiritual talk. They say, oh, God spoke to me, and oh, I felt God leading me to do this, and I was doing this, and I was doing that. You must watch the actions they're taking. If this person who's going on and on about how righteous they are, and maybe not telling you straight up they're righteous, but they're kind of hinting to you that they think they're righteous, like, yes, and this happened, and then I felt led by the Lord. I'm not saying God can't lead you. He jolly well can, and he jolly well can speak. I'm saying be wise, because there are people out there who they move in religious circles and they get big paybacks for doing religious talk, but they're not actually loyal to God. And if you look at their life, you'll find out that they're living with people they're not married to. They are marrying people who are outside the faith. And they are behaving in a way that is totally disloyal to God. And these people, they're disloyal. They're being disloyal to God. But what is worst of all is they're pretending that they are loyal. So the story I've just told you is a wonderful story because it's a story of consistency. Those men had a standard. They knew what was right and they stood by it. And if they had to die for it, so be it. But they weren't going to back down from it. But you know what would be a really disgusting story? A really awful story. Let's say that they said to everyone in the Jewish community, we will not be bowing down to that statue. No way, we're very righteous people, we won't be doing it. And then they went down, and because they looked around and they realised, oh, you know, there's no one here who actually knows us, let's just bow down to this thing, save our lives. And they did that, and then they went around telling people, you know, you have to not worship idols and be so godly. That would be really, really wicked. And unfortunately, although our leaders don't make big statues of themselves and ask us to worship them, there are other ways in the world today to be disloyal to God, and there are some people who claim to love God very much, and they are being disloyal to God. And the reason you need to know this is that sometimes these people are very forceful about trying to tell you how to listen to God. They will be doing all sorts of dreadful things in secret, and then they will be loudly proclaiming that they know how to live, and they're going to teach you, thank you. And you need to be careful who you listen to. And even if someone is telling you everything that's 100% right, if their own life is messed up and they're not living a life of obedience, you need to actually be very, 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 very careful about having anything to do with that person, because that person is a liar, and we become like the people we hang out with. So in life, when somebody is telling you all sorts of things, yeah, listen to their mouth, but also watch their actions. If they don't line up, then you have a problem. You must be loyal to God, and you must remain loyal to God by choosing the things He loves. It's not enough to say, I won't bow down to the statue. Ultimately, you have to be willing to not bow down to the statue, even if it gets you chucked into the fire. And even if you think maybe in this situation, God's not going to rescue you, you're going to have to go through that. You still need to be loyal to God. And if someone out there is telling you this is how to obey God, but you look at their life and they're not being loyal to God, be polite to them, be kind, and get as far away from them as you can, because they're not going to help you become a person of truth, a person of courage, or a person of loyalty to God. Love you.